Hi folks, welcome back to Stacy Can Can. Today I am making white bean chili. This is a recipe that's from the National Center of Home Food Preservation. I have the link down below. It's just kind of a general soup recipe. So you can kind of add and mix and match a little bit on your vegetables and meats and things like that. But just make sure to read those instructions. You can follow this one right to the T, but you can make adjustments on spices and flavorings and things. You can even kind of add different vegetables if you would like. Soups are pretty easy to can. You just want to make sure you don't use thickeners. And I know there are people who like to use sure gel, not sure gel, that's a pectin, clear gel. Clear gel is what a lot of folks use. It's what you use when you make pie fillings. And some people will use that. I have yet to find a tested recipe that has clear gel in it. And I've actually reached out to the my local extension office, actually the person who kind of oversees all of it. She's got her doctorate degree in food sciences for the state of Oregon. So I've reached out to her and asking those questions, hopefully have more information at a later date. So, but just to kind of clarify, this is my recipe that I've modified. And again, I'm not using thickeners, and I'm also not using any dairy or rice or any, starches. You can use potatoes, cut up potatoes and things like that in soups, but not with this recipe. So the ingredients, you need 2 pounds of small white beans. You can also use like a butter bean if you want, or a navy bean, but this is what they had at the store. And I have rehydrated these overnight, and more on the rehydration in a second. You also need 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You need 2 white onions that we're going to dice, 2 bell peppers here that we're going to dice up small, 2 jalapeno peppers as well, diced. A little side note about the peppers. If you can find peppers that have the little tiny marks on them and that aren't really smooth, the ones that have little marks on them actually have more heat in them. They're the ones that have been pollinated by bees. The flowers have been pollinated a lot more by bees. So, and that, I believe, don't quote me on it, but I'm almost positive that's what that means. Anyway, you want to look for them. They're actually kind of hard to find. You often just see the smooth ones, but the ones that have like markings on them and don't look lovely and pretty are hotter. So keep that in mind. 6 cloves of garlic minced. You could use garlic powder if you want. You can use store-bought minced in a jar if you'd like as well. 2 tablespoons of cumin, and we need 8 cups of vegetable broth or stock. I'm using stock today, and then salt and pepper to taste. The tools, we definitely need a big spoon. I do have a thermometer here because we are heating. We got to make sure that the canner is up to 180 degrees before putting in our jars. Because we're putting in a hot item into a hot jar. I also have my jars, a bunch of jars in here just kind of heating up because I didn't have enough room in the canner. So I just have them warming at the moment. It's just, it's nice to have that electric canner, or you can just have another canner on the stove if you want to heat up jars. That's just an option for you there. A chopstick. We do need a chopstick. Chopsticks will be bubbling. We're going to need our ladle, a funnel. We're using a 1-inch Headspace, so I'm using this funnel today. I have my lid lifter, but I don't need that today. I'm not heating the lids. I don't often heat lids when I use the pressure canner. I've got my jar lifter. I've got my Headspace tool, and I do have a ruler because we need to have 3 to 4 inches of water in the pressure canner. Definitely 3 to 4 because I've got to put it, we pressure canning for up to 60 minutes with Pints. It's 75 minutes with Quarts. So I choose to, you need to add a little more water in there, unless it's going to be in there a longer period of time. And then I've got my, I do have a rack here in case I'm not quite sure how many jars it's going to make. So that's one of the reasons why I have a rack set aside here in case I need to stack. I'm just doing Pints today. If you can do this in Quarts if you want, but I just like using Pints. I've got my lids here. I've got my rings, and I've got a stock pot as well. So with all of that, let's go ahead and get started. Quick side note on the stock or the vegetable broth that you will be using for this recipe. I said you needed, what did I say? 8 cups, I think, 8 cups. You actually need like 16 to 20 cups. So you're gonna need an extra 2 of these, or one of, or a kettle full of hot water as well. Reason being is that for the stove top, that recipe would have been fine as it's absorbing the moisture and the liquid for the beans. But you have to add, fill the jars halfway full of the solids and then fill the rest up with the liquid. There's not enough liquid for all of that, for all of the jars that we have in here. So just keep that in mind. You actually need double the amount. Quick note on the beans. You have to rehydrate them before using them. I went ahead and did it overnight. There's 2 ways to do it. I do mine overnight. I kind of like the way they turn out better. That's just my opinion. And so you want to cover your beans with a couple inches of water and set them overnight. Just leave them on the counter overnight and just use cold water. That's all you need. And then we will have to drain this water, rinse the beans, and I will be cooking these with the rest. Now, the other option that you can do is if you have dried beans, for every 1 cup of beans, you add 3 cups of water to the pot. You bring that to a boil, and then boil it for 2 minutes, turn off the heat, keep it covered, put a cover over the beans, and let them set for an hour. Then you bring that up to a boil again, and then drain it. So that is how you can rehydrate. That's kind of quick rehydration, and that's how you can do that with a quick rehydration day of. But again, for me, I just like doing this overnight, and plus it just makes it a little bit quicker for me in the morning. So that is how I rehydrate beans. Quick comment before we get totally started is make sure to like and subscribe below too. It does help. I'm gonna drain the soaked beans. You definitely have to drain the soaking water, that's for sure. And then rinse them. I'm just rinsing them with cool water. All right, now we're gonna add all the ingredients together. I'm hoping, yeah, I think this pot will be big enough for all of this. And so we're adding everything together. Here's the beans, here are the onions, bell peppers, the jalapenos. Another vegetable you could add in here would be celery, and all the garlic. Those are 6. It's almost 7 cloves of garlic. I mean, you can add, a little extra garlic in here if you like. I am adding, this is about 2 teaspoons of salt, which doesn't seem like a lot, but I'm also using the vegetable stock, which has salt in it, and I have a tendency to kind of undersalt things over salting. And then this is about 2 teaspoons of pepper as well. And then here's 2 tablespoons of cumin. You can add a little extra if you like. And then our 8 cups of stock. Now we're gonna bring this up to a boil, and I'm giving it a good stir just to hopefully get all of this pulled together. And I'm going to cover it so we don't lose too much of the moisture from the produce and such in here and from the pot. And we're just gonna get this to a boil, and we're gonna boil it for probably 5 minutes. So I've got a boil going. It's boiling pretty hard. I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit, but and I've set the timer for 5 minutes. And I'm gonna go ahead and keep the cover on just so we don't lose some moisture here. And when the timer goes off, we'll start jarring it up. Okay, so I've cut the heat to this, and I'm gonna take the lid off. It smells really good, by the way, too, so that's lovely. And we're gonna go ahead and start taking the jars out, just one at a time. Yeah, the temperature is over 185 degrees, so I am cutting the heat at the moment. Just gonna turn the heat completely off of the canner. And I've taken out a jar, and we're gonna fill it up halfway with the food, and then the other half, and then we'll add the broth. And that is about to a 1-inch headspace. Go ahead and check, we'll bubble real quick, kind of bubble around, and which is just releasing the bubbles. I just kind of give it a quick stir. And well, we're gonna need to add just a little bit more liquid. You can also have, there we go, that's what we need. You can also have some water setting aside, boiled water set aside if you'd like. And now we're gonna clean the rim, and in case we run out of liquid. Cleaning the rim. We're gonna add our lid and the ring, just fingertip tight, and this is hot, so be careful. Just a fingertip tight, and then up and over into the canner. Do not tip and tilt, or tilt. Now we're gonna go ahead, I've got all the jars in. We ended up with 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 pints. And I am setting the lid on now, and we'll get it all tightened up. I've got the lid on, and I've set the heat up to high, and we're gonna start watching for a steady stream of steam. I also forgot to mention that I did put a couple tablespoons, just a couple little bloop bloops of white vinegar in the canner itself. It's a great thing to do, and it just kind of helps keep the canner from smelling, and it's easier to clean when you're done with processing your jars. I'm not sure you can see that or not. There is a steady stream of steam going, so I've set the timer for 10 minutes. 10-minute timer has gone off, so I'm gonna go ahead and cover the vent pipe here. Be careful. And I'm using the 10-pound weight for this, as I am between 0 and 1,000 feet. I'll have other information on what weight to use below in the notes, as well as up here on the side. And when it gets up to the PSI we need for my elevation, I'll set the timer. The dial gauge has hit 11 pounds of pressure for my elevation or altitude. I always forget which one. And I'm between I'm between 0 and 2,000 feet. So that's where we're at for this. More information is off to the side here, as well as down below in the show notes, different PSIs, and also what's needed for your weighted gauge canners. Timer has gone off, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut the heat. And we're gonna let this cool completely until the dial gauge hits 0. The dial gauge has hit 0, so we're gonna go ahead and take the vent pipe cover off, and it is doing its thing, releasing a little bit of the pressure there, which is good. But and I've set the timer for 10 minutes to let the contents settle in the jars and such, in the contents of the food settle in the jars for 10 minutes. That will help with the sealing process. The 10-minute timer has gone off for letting the jars settle. And so now I'm going to take the lid off, and be careful when you're opening the lid. You want to open it away from your face. Look at all that steam. That is very, very hot. So you need to be very careful. And now we just remove the jars. I'm gonna leave the center one here in the middle and just remove the outside jars first. I do have a little, a tray set on it, so for balance purposes, I'm leaving the center one, the center jar in there, so it doesn't tip or tilt. This looks a little one just sealed. This looks a little wackadoodle, but I have found using a bottle opener does a good job of carefully lifting up the little shelf that I had placed inside. And I've picked it up before, the little shelf, this little tray, and dropped it and it hit one of the jars and falsely sealed it. So I'm a little careful when I do this. So the 2 pounds of beans made 16 pints, which is wonderful, which would probably equate actually 8 quarts. Well, duh. I mean, 2 pints equals a quart. So you're welcome for that math. Fast math right here. Anywho, so anyway, I like a pint system, so that works really well for us. But that's how you do it. Now you want to make sure you let them set overnight. These are very hot. They're still boiling and bubbling here, and some of these are just making really loud popping noises when they seal, which is kind of exciting and sort of fun. But I'll give you an example. This one has sealed. Doesn't that look good? Well, it may not look good. It smells amazing in the house, by the way. It smells completely amazing in the house. But that's how you do it. It was just that simple. Keeping in mind that I did have to add another 8 cups, actually a little more than 8 cups of liquid for the soup. It just was not enough because the beans were not, even though the beans were rehydrated, when beans cook, they absorb a lot of water and a lot of liquid. So I kind of didn't factor that in with the original recipe of just saying that I needed 8 cups of broth. So I did add an additional 8 cups. So you definitely need 16 cups. So keep that in mind. And then I also had a kettle of boiling water that had boiled. So I had to add some to the last couple of jars, just add a little bit of water. I think it was the last 3 jars. Add a little bit of water because I had ran out of even that much broth. So it's kind of hard to judge a little bit, but just keep that in mind. You'll need to have something extra broth for you. So that's how you do it. Now, the recipe is down below with the modifications of the broth and stock that I used, as well as please like and subscribe while you're there. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, feedback, concerns, by all means, please reach out to me. I'm on Facebook at Stacy Can Can. You can at me on TikTok and Instagram at Stacy Can Can. My website is www.stacycancan.com. And my email is info@stacycancan.com. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. Just search me up at Stacy Can Can. So thanks again for joining me today. And until next time, happy canning.